Hi everyone, welcome back to CodeTav management. So in the last lecture, we have discussed about the OAuth 2.0 and the OIDC, OpenID Connect. So in this lecture, I will discuss about the role-based authorization in Spring Boot using the pre-authorize and the post-authorize annotations. So just think like when you were building a small application with some 4 or 5 endpoints, then handling your role checks inside the global security filter chain works perfectly fine. But think when it is large enterprise scale, like thousands of permissions will require like for hundreds of microservices, thousands of permissions, and some complex conditional based on who owns the data. Then managing that in global filters turns into an absolute architectural nightmare. So today, we are shifting our security rules straight into the Java classes. So we are mastering the method level security using the pre-authorize and post-authorize annotations. So we will dissect how they use the Spring expression language, the SpEL, and how they get intercepted under the hood, and how to write the dynamic rules that can inspect a method's return value before it leaves your server. So think accordingly, write better code, cleaner code day by day, think some good architecture, think about the scalability, availability. Okay, so my main intention is to gain knowledge, to discuss the knowledge on top of the system design, how the scalable system design, like how the scalable enterprise level system designs are being done, the scalable applications are being built. Okay, so as a segment one, I can discuss with like enable the method security using the pre-authorize. Okay, so first of all, the how we will enable the method security and how we will use the pre-authorize annotations. So these are our two parts. So first is enabling method level security. So to get started, if you try to use the security annotations out of the box, Spring Boot will completely ignore them. So we have to explicitly turn them on by adding the enable method security. So when you will add this enable method security, then that basically activates the pre-authorize and post-authorize annotations. So we need to add it in our security config configuration class. So now let's take a look at our first thing, the pre-execution validation, the pre-authorize annotation. So look at that code. The pre-authorize annotation is evaluated before a target controller or service method is entered. So here, just in your REST controller, suppose this is the order controller, your API slash API, that is your endpoint. Like post request mapping is slash API, and then inside that get mapping is orders, means slash API slash orders. So to fetch orders basically, so just before executing or the before execution of this controller, we are adding this pre-authorize and giving the has role as user and has authority as the order read. So user must possess both the role user and the exact permission order read. So the pre-authorized annotation is evaluated before a target controller or service method is entered. So if the Spring expression language uh, evaluates to false, then execution halts immediately, and a 403 forbidden exception will be dispatched. So here, when we will discuss about this pre-authorized annotation, we have discussed about this hasRole and hasAuthority. So we need to understand what are the differences between the hasRole and hasAuthority in the respect of architectural difference. So you have looked at this expression like pre-authorize hasRole user and hasAuthority as order read. So before a user can hit this endpoint, Spring's interceptor pauses the execution, pulls the user's token out of the security context and evaluates the condition. So if they don't have both the right role and the exact authority, the method never compiles, never hits your database, and immediately it will throw a 403 forbidden status. So now we need to discuss about the core difference between the has role and has authority. So that is basically a classic interview question that basically trips up mid-level engineers. Like, what is the actual difference between the has role and has authority? So in Spring's security expression root, okay, so like if you will see in Spring Boot, there is a proper class security expression root dot java. So in this security expression root dot java, both like they are practically the same except for one crucial detail, prefixing. So both functions examine the user's granted authorities collection, but they format the input differently. So when you will write the has role as user, Spring automatically appends role underscore to the front and checking your collection for role user, like role underscore user. Okay. So when you write the has authority as order underscore read, then Spring checks for the exact string matching without altering it. So keep the rule straight or your annotations will silently fail. Okay. So it looks precisely for string value order underscore read. And for has role, it automatically appends the prefix role underscore to provide the string, and it checks if the user possesses an authority named role underscore user, right? That is the pre-execution validation, like before entering the controller or the service methods, it actually validated. But after the executions also, one annotation is there, which is post authorize. So but what if the security rule depends on the data inside the database? So for instance, what if any logged in user can call user slash ID? Okay, so, but they are only allowed to see the profile if they own that specific user ID. So you cannot check that before the method runs because you have not fetched the data yet. So that is where post authorized annotation comes up. So post authorize executes after the underlying method successfully runs, but before the return payload is transmitted back to the caller. So here you can see that this is the post authorize, like in the fetch account part. Suppose this ID. So the method queries the DB first, then thus SpEL. What full form it is? Huh? I have told you. What is the full form of SpEL? Spring Expression Language, right? So whenever our method got executed, but before returning the exact response, we actually use these post authorize annotations. So there we pass like return object dot owner id as authentication dot principal dot id. So the method queries the DB first, then the SPEL inspects the return object. Okay. So see, so look at how powerful this is. The method executes normally. It contacts the database and retrieves the user object. Then before the response is sent back across the network, then post authorized annotation actually intercepts it and it evaluates the return object.id against the authenticated session ID. So if they match, the data is released. If user B tries to look at user A's profile, then Spring catches it, blocks the payload, and throws a 403 forbidden. So in this way, we can secure the things. So see, suppose this B underscore user ID is 102, request slash account slash 5. Suppose this get mapping, this account slash ID, this is 5. The controller calls account service, then find by ID 5, which returns an account object whose owner ID is 101. So post authorize intercepts the return object, okay, and evaluates that 101 equals 102 or not. Okay. So 101 is not equals to 102, right? So it will be false. Then Spring overrides the return routine, purges the payload from the thread, and throws an access denied exception as 403 forbidden. So you knew that, like, so before execution of the method also we can validate, and after execution of the method also, but before returning of the response also we can validate the data. So whenever this with the find by ID, we are passing this ID as 5, right? So some user just whose owner ID is suppose 102, he actually trying to fetch the ID of 5 from the database. He thought that he can get the data. But but we actually have used the post authorized annotation. So when they actually fetching the data from the database, then we are checking that their owner ID, for the ID 5, the owner ID is 101. So as we have implemented the post authorized annotations, so from the return object, we evaluated that the the owner ID of the data is 101. But in the request parameter, we have passed the owner ID 102, right? So that those two are not same. So we will instantly will just throw access denied exception. Now the difference between the interceptors and filters. What are the things of interceptors and filters? So how does this magic actually work? Like security filters happen at the servlet layer, right? Whatever security filter you have implemented, that actually happen at the servlet layer. So long before the request reaches your Spring Beans. So like method security works downstream at the Spring method level using the AOP proxies and interceptors. So when you boot up your application, then Spring reads your annotation, parses the expressions using the SpEL expression parser and creates an abstract syntax tree. So just think accordingly. What is the flow sequence? First, the application startup. So Spring detects the enable method security annotation and parses the expressions inside annotations using the SpEL expression parser. Okay. So again, I'm telling you have added the enable method security. Here I have told, right? Here you have added the enable method security annotation in your configuration. Now you are parsing the expression inside annotations using the SpEL expression parser. Okay. Next, compilation. So expressions are organized inside the abstract syntax tree and that is optimized for high speed dynamic execution. Now, in the network, the execution routing happens. So first, before invoking to controller or the service methods, we have the pre-authorized validation step. So the request passes through the HTTP filter layer and enters the Spring context container. So before matching the controller proxy, authorization manager before method interceptor intercepts the call. This authorization manage before method interceptor intercepts the call, and then it will evaluate the abstract syntax tree expression. So it will, if it will not, if the expression will not match, it will block. If the expression will be matched, then it will permits the entry. And what is the post authorization steps? So the method triggers, queries data, and prepares a return expressions. Now the authorization manage after method interceptor. Just think, these two interceptors are there. So one is filter, another is interceptor. So one, during the pre-authorization step, you have the authorization manage before method interceptor, and next is authorization manager after method interceptor. So that also catches the returned object variable inside the thread context via the keyword return object and performs the final cryptographic or identity computation. So again, I'm telling how this magic actually working. So when you boot up your application, Spring reads your annotations, parses the expressions using the SpEL expression parser. Here I have told this using the SpEL expression parser, your expressions is being parsed. And then it will be like during the compilation process, it will create the abstract syntax tree where all the expressions are being organized. So first point, you just remember this keyword first. Like whenever you will add this enable method security annotation, Spring will detect that and parses the expressions inside annotations using the SpEL expression parser. After that, it will create or and organize the expressions inside the abstract syntax tree. So why this is being happened? For the high speed dynamic execution, we are doing this. And now for high speed dynamic execution you have done, so after that what will be happen? The execution flow will be happened. So for the execution routing, there are two validation steps. One is pre-authorized steps, another is post-authorized steps. So pre-execution validation and post-execution validation. So for pre-authorize, it activates the authorization manager before method interceptor, and for post-authorize, it wraps in it in the authorization manager after method interceptor. Okay, so this is why method security scales infinitely for enterprise applications. So your security logic sits right beside your business logic. Okay, you understood? I think as I have discussed many times, many more times, I have emphasized the exact keywords, what you need to say or what you need to understand during uh, the learning or during the interview, what words you need to emphasize. Then so you have understood that, I think. So in the application startup, enable method security, then SpEL expression parser. During compilation, you have to tell about the abstract syntax tree, then execution routing for pre-authorization step, like for the pre-authorized annotation, it activates the authorization manager before method interceptor, and for post-authorized annotation, it wraps it in the authorization manager after method interceptor. So these 4 5 points you need to tell briefly and clearly. Okay, then it will be helpful. Next, some interview questions I will just discuss. So like as a first question, like what is the fundamental difference between the pre-authorized and post-authorized, that I have told many times. I think you have understood it. Okay. Next, why do my roles fail to match when utilize has authority admin instead of has role admin? So hasRole admin actually expects your user mapping context to look for an authority labeled role underscore admin. So as it injects mandatory prefix behind the scenes, has authority admin skips prefix formatting entirely and looks for an exact literal match on the text string admin. So you need to use the has role as admin, not the has authority as admin. So when has role is admin, so it will be prefixed with role underscore admin. And if you will, and it will check with this proper keyword like role underscore admin. And when you will pass the admin only, then it will check only, it will check the string as only admin. So that will be filled as no matching will be happened. Now, can method annotations inspect incoming method arguments? Yes. The SpEL expressions can reference method arguments using hash marker prefix. For instance, pre-authorize like user ID equals authentication dot principal dot ID validates parameters seamlessly before compiling runtime steps. So basically, here the thing is asked like the method annotations inspect like can method annotation inspect incoming method arguments? So obviously yes. The Spring expression language can reference method arguments using the hash marker prefix. Like here you can see like in the pre-authorized annotation, we can pass the user ID with this hash user ID equals to authentication dot principal dot ID. And that basically validates the parameters seamlessly before compiling runtime steps. So during the pre-validation phase, it will be inspected. Now, where do method security interceptors live relatively to Spring security filters? So filters execute at the web servlet tier before the routing engine assigns a request to a controller handler. So method security interceptors operate inside the Spring Core application container space utilizing dynamic proxies around bean execution boundaries. Okay, so I hope these things are useful for you and it will definitely help in your next interview or during your project works. Okay, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so obviously like if you want to architect the backend systems like a senior engineer or you need to gather some good knowledges, then please hit the like button and subscribe to CodeTav management for more advanced Spring Boot masterclasses and also the backend engineering lectures, some system design lectures also I will start. Okay, yeah, so that's all. Bye everyone.